All right, guys. So today we are going to talk about Barbarian Specialization. Whenever you get a class up to level 20, you get to specialize that class into one of three classes. And today we're going to cover the Barbarian. We're going to cover all three of the class specializations. We're going to talk about what each of them do, what's the situations that you would use each of them, and which is my personal favorites. And by the time we're done with this video, you're going to be an absolute master of the Barbarian Specialization. All right, rock and roll. So guys, if you love what we're doing on this channel and you want to support, please consider getting one of our skins in Stream Captains. The Stream Raiders is an awesome game, and we have a whole bunch of TeamVASH skins, and we'd love for you to help support what we're doing here and grab some skins, rep the TeamVASH colors, be a part of the Vash Corps. Thank you so much, guys. All right, let's get right into it. So, TeamVASH Barbarian Specialization. This thing is cool, man. I love specializing. So we just got our Barbarian up to level 20, and we get to choose one of the three. So we got the Brawlers, the Heroics, and the Wilds. So let's talk about it. The Brawler Barbarian is a specialized melee unit that deals 40% extra damage to other melee units. So if you take the Brawler Barbarian, what this is going to do is make you extremely dangerous against other Barbarians, against Warriors, and against Berserkers. Those are the three melee classes in the game, and by specializing as a Brawler, you will be able to beat those guys up really bad. 40% bonus damage to those units is pretty devastating when you consider that you are an AoE attacking class. You can hit multiple enemies with one swing. Everything around you gets hit, and that splash damage is going to do 40% against all of those melee targets. Pretty insane. That means as a Barbarian to begin with, you're going to have an advantage against armored units, and then as a Brawler, you're going to have an advantage against melee units, meaning you're going to get a bonus against virtually every melee unit in the game, making you absolutely deadly on the front line. Anything that gets close to you, that runs into you, is going to get completely devastated. So very powerful offensive class. Next, we have the Heroic Barbarian. The Heroic is pretty cool. It's a specialized melee unit that deals AoE damage and grants nearby enemies a 40% damage boost at the start of the battle. So this one is pretty nuts, right? Pretty nuts. What this does is makes it so that every single unit around your unit, so all the units directly touching your unit, will become empowered by a buff, a damage buff. Now, this is actually really nuts, because it affects all of your attack units. So your melee units, your armored units, your ranged units, your assassin units, all of these units can get a 40% damage bonus just by standing around you. So as long as nobody places any medics or flag bearers close to you, this here is one of the most powerful group buffing effects in the game. The other thing to know about bonuses like this is that these bonuses last for the entire game. They're not like the epic bonuses where it's an AoE bonus that buffs you for a short time. The bonus that you get for the Heroic Barbarian buffs all of those units around you for the entire match until they die. So it is extremely powerful. Just incredible. Okay, so the Wild Barbarian. It is a specialized melee unit that deals AoE damage over a wider area. 3. Now, what this means is that it actually hits a larger cleaving area in front of the Barbarian. So normally, the Barbarian has a cleaving range of 2 and increases this to 3. So what this means exactly is that when the Barbarian is attacking, he can hit up to 3 enemies in front of him with his 2 range. With his 3 range, this gives him the ability to hit up to 5 enemies in front of him. So it doesn't give him a longer range, it gives him a wider range in a cone in front of him. So normally you can swing and hit 3 different enemies in front of you. Now with the Wild Barbarian, you can hit up to 5 enemies in front of you. So pretty impressive, right? This really increases the amount of units that that the barbarian can take on. If you're fighting a huge horde of enemies that are coming in on you, you can use the extra big cleave to just hit tons and tons of enemies in front of you. So this is really important when you're fighting huge hordes of enemies, right? When you're fighting these huge hordes of enemies, he just shines, right? He absolutely shines. Now, this is more of a niche type character, because not all situations are you going to be fighting swarms of small enemies. But when you do have those situations, if you build your wild barbarian, if you build into a wild barbarian, then you'll have a counterplay unit that you can use for these exact moments. Now, this is exceptionally powerful when you see huge amounts of tanks, enemy tanks coming in on you, because as a melee class, the barbarian is designed to destroy armor. He does extreme damage against armor. So when you're fighting against tanks or centurions, those types of enemies, you're going to do just absolutely critical damage. And with a wild barbarian, you can hit up to 5 enemies in front of you at a time. Pretty insane. So for me personally, I'm not a huge fan of the wild barbarian. The extra being able to hit that many more units is really good, but I personally am more of the opinion that the brawler and the heroic barbarian they have a much more profound effect on the field of battle. Being able to get enhanced damage against melee units gives you more universal functionality in when melee units are all piling in on you. It doesn't matter if they're tanks, it doesn't matter if they're melee, they're all going to take significant bonus damage. So it gives you that more versatility. And there's not the situations where you're actually fighting 5 enemies in front of you. It could happen quite a bit. When it does happen, the wild barbarian is just so dominant. But there's lots of situations where the battle gets pretty clustered and enemies kind of funnel in on you, or your guys going up the side, and you're only hitting a handful, maybe 2, maybe 3 enemies at a time. And in this case, the barbarian's attack, his cleaving range, the amount of extra enemies that he hits is actually just fine. It actually works really good, and you would benefit much more from having versatility in the types of damage you're going to get bonus damage against, or in the case of the heroic barbarian, getting this massive damage boost that you can boost your entire team. Everybody that's touching the barbarian gets this humongous boost, and it's just absolutely incredible. So for me personally, I'd say if you're a streamer, go with heroic. If you place lots and lots of barbarians, then the brawler is probably a better option. The wild barbarian is for your specialty people who want to use him only sparingly, only when it, on those specific moments where you really need that extra enemy cleaving power. The wild barbarian especially, it would be, exceptionally powerful when you're fighting against clumps of enemies that are comboing ground enemies with air enemies. If ever you came up to a situation where you actually had a whole horde of ground forces coming in on you, and then you have air units coming over top of them, the wild barbarian's cleaving effect would be absolutely devastating, so long as he was a heroic unit that could hit the air at the same time. So in that situation, the wild barbarian is, again, just crushing power. So I think the most versatile would be the heroic, because there is never a situation where having a damage boost to your entire team is ever going to not be a huge bonus. And the brawler barbarian is, there's never going to be a situation where doing versatile damage against all melee units, there's never going to be a situation where that is ever going to be a negative, right? Where that's ever going to not be super useful. So the brawler and the heroic have much more versatility. Anyway, I hope that really clears up the wild barbarian's strengths and why you would want to use that guy. The heroic barbarian, one of my favorite strategies is actually to get your archers to surround you. So you have this barbarian you would think, oh yeah, let's buff all my melee teammates, but that's not the case. You can buff anybody, including archers. And giving archers a 40% permanent damage bonus for the entire game, it can be game shattering, right? It can change everything. Archers are extremely powerful, and if they get a massive damage bonus that's permanent forever, it can be a game breaking effect. So that one, for a streamer, for a person in charge, a person who places epic units, really, the big hero units all the time, having that heroic barbarian is, it can swing an entire game in your favor. Having brawlers on the front line, if you're just a regular player placing lots and lots of barbarians, the brawlers can be just devastating, because you can have one little unit, killing waves of enemies. So if you're placing tons and tons of barbarians down on the field, the brawler is probably your best choice. Although then you've got the wild barbarian. The wild barbarian has this massive wide cone. So if you're fighting enemies that are like clumped, if you have like a huge thick, like two forces meeting each other, these two massive waves, if your barbarian's on the front line, you're going to cleave through 3 lines of enemies, right? Just wiping out huge amounts of enemies before the enemy can even do anything about it. So yeah, you guys definitely have your work cut out for you. I think if you're just your average player who is just placing tons of barbarians down, I think the brawler is probably your best choice. The wild barbarian is absolutely amazing if if you want to have that wide cone effect. If you think that you want to maybe use your barbarian more for specialized area of effect situations. A lot of this strategy comes from when you're placing your units. If you want to build your units with specific specializations for like situational use, like if you want to use your barbarians all the time, right? If it's like your main unit and you want to use them constantly, the brawler is probably your best choice. But if you want to build your barbarian as a specialist, right, then the wild barbarian is probably your best choice, because then you can save him for those moments when you see armies with tons and tons and tons of small units all coming together. Then you can place the wild barbarian down and his cleave attack will just completely wreck whole areas. So it depends if you want to play him constantly all the time, or if you want to play him really situationally where you want to save him for that right situation, or whether you're a streamer and you want to use the heroic version of this character to buff your whole team and make everybody else strong. So you got a lot of options. There's no right or wrong answer. All 3 of these are absolutely extreme, elite, awesome choices. And you're basically picking. You pick the one that's best for you and your situation. All right, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the Barbarian Specializations. This is a really complicated one just because the 3 options are so good. There is no bad option, which is not always the case. So I hope this one helps you, really decide which version of this character is going to be best for you. All right, guys. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a thumbs up. It really helps us out. Ring that little bell for notifications, and as always, comment down below and let me know what you think of the video. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for watching our content and helping this channel grow. Thank you for being a part of the Bash Corps, guys. Love you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Oh yeah!